it's Infinity Gamer here, and I'm going to run through the Gen Con live event so that you don't have to watch it. I first want to thank James Chauveau, hopefully that's pronounced correctly, for doing the live stream. Yours was the one I watched and it was fantastic. I particularly enjoyed your reactions. They mirrored my own in pretty much every regard. So thank you for taking the time to do the recording. It enables people like me who can't be there to enjoy and partake as much as possible, apart from the secret bits, which you did very well to keep hidden. Well done, James. I'll try and remember to put a link in the description of this video to James's video in case you want to watch it yourself. Well worth it if you've got over an hour or so to watch. There were a couple of nuggets dropped in there. Prior to watching this, I had watched the studio update, which was supposed to cover pretty much everything that was covered in this Gen Con event. It didn't cover everything. There was a lot, especially in the Q&A at the end, that was discussed and revealed that probably, I don't know that it should have been, but there were a lot of juicy nuggets towards the end of this live preview. I'm going to go through everything that was in there, including the Q&A section, so that you don't have to. First up, it was billed as the biggest Gen Con event ever for Infinity, and they weren't lying. With a lot of what is released, it does sound as though Corvus Belli are moving into a really new phase of growth. A couple of things that are accelerating that we will go through, but one of them is obviously the TV series, and that's spearheading, I think, quite a lot of this change in attitude within Corvus Belli to their own IP and their own mechanics. And then a few other things like N5 got mentioned, lots of stuff. So I'm going to try and do this as quickly as possible and keep the video as short as I can. Eugene Joy Toy figures were shown and mentioned. You'll see those on the Facebook pages. Bronze Fall, there was a reminder that pledges are open until August 15th, so if you want to get onto that, do so. Warcrow was the first major topic of the Gen Con seminar. It was announced that Winds of the North is going to be available for sale at Gen Con, and then it's going to be available from there. The rule book, which is going to be the biggest book Corvus Belli says they've ever produced, is going to have pictures of the minis in it, which is a good idea, and is definitely something I will be surprised if it's not in N5, which I'll talk about in more detail when that comes through, because it sounds that they're trying to some cohesion in that area, but not necessarily in terms of rule mechanics. The full Warcrow release timeline was shared on the preview. There'll be snippets of that appearing in Warcrow groups. If that's the game system that you're following, definitely check those out. New factions were released, and Carlos, all hail Papa Bostria, focused on the competitive scene and its importance for dynamic game balance. So Warcrow tournaments will be a thing. So definitely Warcrow will have a competitive scene because they use that, as they did with Infinity, to feed back into the rules, the mechanics, the point systems. And moving on to Infinity, the new Aristea game got a rename, which you may have seen on Facebook, to Hexadome Tactics. That's looking epic. They played a trailer of the game, which made it look insanely good. I've been following the development of that. I haven't got the beta. I just haven't got time. But it looks amazing, and if I was playing video games at the moment, that would definitely be on top of my list. Honestly, I think this is actually going to bring people into the Infinity world, not only because it's a video game, which has a bigger reach than all games do, but the look and style of it, and I think the game tactics are going to be really cool for that. Next, we were shown next month's tag releases, which are coming soon. That's literally around the corner. So we've got the new JSA tag, which is actually a bit of a leap forward into a lot of what's happening with JSA going forward, which you would have seen from the studio update if you have seen that anyway. And then the Tick Belang, that was mentioned that they're going to be in hard plastic. That's where they start to tease that something massive's coming. We saw the Ariadne Ratnik, that's getting a new sculpt, that will also be in the hard plastic. Samsa unit is getting a general release because that was part of the season 13 or something. The Viday Hero unit is getting a release. The Kludger and the Wave Rider pack for O12 Torchlight are getting released together. The Trip Hammer, with confirmation that that's going to be in hard plastic as well. Mukhtar getting a new release, the new Beast Hunter, which is kind of JSA themed. I wonder where we're going with this. Then Carlos, praise be to Bostria, dropped the news that JSA will be getting a ton of love. At that stage of the video, that's all he says. We know from the studio update that there's more, and there is so much more for JSA. They will be removed from NA2, and they will become their own new faction. We get more on that later in the video. A whole bunch of models were shared from the JSA new releases. There's going to be so much hype around that you're going to see a ton of stuff, but also if you're a JSA fan, you'll be seeing that yourself. After JSA, there was confirmation that the Sibylla AI will be expanded into other areas beyond a lawbot, which is a current role at the moment. This was actually quite cool because they had the Lex and Otis team, who are in charge of the new TV series, talk at great lengths about their general view and vision for Corvus Belli and Infinity, and it's expansive. I'm going to go through a couple of specifics here, but it's so impressive what they've got in the works, genuinely mind-blowing. And the Sibylla AI is a little tool to help now and also with N5. I think at the moment it's a bit of a toy, but from N5 onwards it's actually going to be a useful bit of kit towards the game system. Spoiler alert. A lot of mentions the expansion of Infinity in a new era. Paradise Lost was the next thing where the trailer was reshown, which you would have seen on my page and everyone else's page pretty much that exists ever. Confirmation that the series, and this is confirmation from Lex Notice, confirmation that the series is set in the events that lead up to Paradiso, which might be news to some people. It sets up the story, it seems, up to before the Combined Army's arrival. The pilot episode focuses on a medic getting recruited into the Assassins. While the trailer is very Hack-Islam, they will feature Ariadne, as that's the producer's faction. So many cool stories behind this, and again, ones that you won't read anywhere else, but this is from I forget his name now, but the producer. He's got such a cool background. Like, he's worked on pretty major stuff, DC, Snyderverse stuff, Marvel, ton of lots of big stuff, but it's his passion project. Like, he's an Ariadne player. A few years ago, I think it was 2019, 2020, that's when he first approached Corvus Belli and kind of led with his own studio. This is where they want to go, this is the story. And so he's driving it massively, but it's looking beautiful and some serious chops behind that. But, so back to that, the trailer's very Hack-Islam. It will feature Ariadne, as that's the creators faction. Nomads, Aleph and Eugene were all confirmed to feature in this first season. Pano was confirmed to not. It's not going to feature till season 2. Sounds as though they set up something towards the end of season 2 that is going to lead towards Pano coming through. Equip Mirage 5 will feature in this season. Again, being an Ariadne player, I think he loved it. One thing that comes across is that they need some community drive behind this TV show in order for it to get picked up by the streaming services and things like that. They need to see that there's a demand from at least, because if the core fan base, who are going to be the most receptive to this, aren't interested, then there's absolutely no reason why a wider audience would be as well. And so one of the calls to action from that was community, share, talk about it, get hyped. At the moment, and I might repeat this later, plan, there isn't a distribution confirmed for this, and so they're talking to a whole bunch of people, and I think what actually gets done will depend on how much demand there is and how big they can go and where they can go with that. They dropped that there's going to be more novels and mangas are in the works, but they also say later that there's a lot of stuff beyond that happening too. Big releases coming in the next 12 to 24 months, and it will all be canon. Then sadly, James, being a good guy, stops the recording because there's a request or not, while they share some really big behind the scenes stuff that's super secret. So the audio in the feed cuts out for a bit. Then when it comes back, it says that Kassad Hassassin Farzan is the model from the series that is hard plastic, and it seems as though that's a release from Lex and Otis, and that's what all the Gen Con people ended up getting. You won't be a general release. Then N5 gets announced, and this is big news. You would have seen this in the studio update, but we get some more details during the preview from that. It's going to be October this year, which is annoying for me because I'm running a tournament in October, and so I'm panicking that there's going to be N5. Judging by what then gets said, it sounds like it's maybe not going to affect my tournament at all, being very selfish. It was confirmed that N Song was part of the story arc of N4, and that is basically N4 coming to an end with the Combined Army effectively ending their campaign on the human sphere and sort of joining forces to face the quantum anomaly zones. And then there are going to be sectorials within that for the more advanced players. We're going to talk to this later, but that's going to be mostly explainer. I couldn't hear properly, but it sounds as though that battle box could be Sandtrap or Suntrap or something like that. Sandtrap sounded about right. Didn't quite get that, and nothing was written for me to be able to correct that. It's being called, so N5 is being called a continuistic edition, polishing the diamond with core mechanics remaining, no major change to Warcrow style dice and stuff. It's still going to be D20s, still always going to be your turn. I think Corvus Belli have realised that they've kind of hit upon a really good thing here, a really unique mechanism system, and will stay with it, which is excellent. A huge optimization update of points and rules. Lighter on the overhaul of the rules, it sounded like was the general vibe. There will be new profiles, new categories of profiles, but the game is in a good place, and they realise that, especially from a competitive scene. So I don't think it's going to be maybe as big a sea change as what we've seen from N3 to M4. This is more expansive than new rules. One thing that Carlos, praise be to Austria, was keen to announce is that it's going to be more thought through. So N5 is going to be points adjustments, but it's also going to be release schedules. It's the business planning around an edition. They kind of seem to be looking at it as almost like a sprint of like evolving the game and the brand and everything like that. And obviously the TV series and a whole bunch of the other stuff that's coming is going to align with that too. More of a focus on having minis ready for things like tournaments, so quicker launches, better distribution. Obviously a lot of the investment they've done in-house is going to enable that quicker turnaround of stuff. Rules videos and explainers will be coming from CB, with basic rules videos included in some of these packs and boxes that get released, and then more advanced rules coming later, which means I'm out of the business. Not that my rules videos have been coming out anytime soon. That's the core of the seminar itself. Then we go into the Q&A session, which is where we actually get to uncover some really cool stuff. Warco releases, there will be more at Adepticon, it seems. Then it flicks back to Infinity. There's going to be a lot of jumping around with this section, just as a warning. Onyx will be getting some releases as more of a focus over Morats. This actually came from a question asking for when the Sogarat release was going to happen for Morats. And then Carlos kind of takes that and goes, well, the Onyx are actually going to be way ahead of Morats in terms of that. That comes up later as well. So when we get further, N5 is effectively going to mean, then there was a question around what's going to happen to the in playable but not in catalog models. And effectively N5 is going to mean that a lot of things are being cut, but armies will be coming back at the right moment. Another example was Onyx. That gets used as an example a couple of times in terms of like something that is going to come back in bigger and better format. They want to make it all beginner friendly. I'm going to jump to that in more detail. Koonin is also used as an example of the success of a relaunch. They're really, really proud of how that got received and how that was handled, getting an older faction, giving it new love and making it playable and competitive in the modern sense. So that was aligned with that Onyx comment as well. The question comes up as to whether guided missiles are going to be fixed in N5, and I quote, because I know there's so much controversy around here, they will be fixed in a way that satisfies those that shoot them and those that receive them. So they're not being nixed no matter what you see. Vehicles will be in N5. That comes from a question where the rules enable them, but we don't have models and we don't have profiles that have vehicles, apart from motorcycles, obviously. But vehicles will be in N5. Code 1 won't be a thing for N5. Starter mechanics will be baked into N5 and not their own game system. There will be a line of products focused on beginners within the N5 rule set. The AI will be improved and it seems like they're heading towards more of a wiki for N5. And so that's the production roadmap is for N5. The Sibilla system will be not just laws, not just jokes, not just for people to hit on because you're bored. It will actually be for answering Brawl's questions and things like that, it seems. How much of that will be ready for N5? Unsure. NA2 will not be present at the launch of N5, but before you panic, it sounds like a few things won't be. In fact, if anything, Carlos was kind of leaning towards just the JSA and the Pano boxes will be kind of available from the start of N5, but then things will get released pretty quickly. I don't know about pretty quickly, but things will be released and some things will be brought back. So don't panic. It doesn't necessarily mean that something's being fully cancelled. Yet Paradise Lost, jumping to the next thing, the show has a pitch or plan up to third offensive. So if you've been with Infinity for a long time and you followed all of those, and then they feel like they might have to do a jump in the timeline if it continues beyond that. The critical hits with close combat, this is for M5, will be more effective. They feel like Carlos, Praise be of Austria, was basically saying that it should be, if you're a martial arts expert and you're in combat with something, it should be more devastating if you get criticals, if you're hitting on CC26 and things like that. So it sounds like that might get a bit of a mechanics change in favour of the attackers. Lastly, reinforcements. Reinforcements isn't going anywhere. It'll be integrated into N5 and the ITS mechanics. So definitely not dying a death, even though maybe the launch wasn't super successful, even though I love it, but definitely heading somewhere. That's my wrap up of the whole Gen Con live event. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope it hasn't been too terrible for you. Watch the whole thing. The description is in the comments below if you want to get your own take on all of those things.